From awkward instances of unwanted romance, to a frankly disturbing amount of child-dispatching visuals for a family-friendly franchise. These are those times Star Wars likely went a little bit too far. Gareth here from What Culture Star Wars, and here are the 10 most inappropriate moments in Star Wars. Number 10, an awkward Naboo visit was very nearly even more inappropriate. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. There's actually a reason why George Lucas routinely forced his actors to let loose some of the most painful dialogue ever uttered by a human being over the course of his prequel trilogy. When he allowed his stars the freedom to explore and improvise a touch, some rather inappropriate shenanigans had a habit of trickling onto the Star Wars scene. That's according to Padme Amidala actor Natalie Portman at least, with the Academy Award winner explaining in an extract from the Best of Star Wars Insider Volume 8, The Saga Begins, that the scene involving herself and Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker flirting over floating fruit on Naboo took a turn the minute they were allowed to go off script a touch. As she put it, I don't think George was satisfied with the dialogue he had written, because he told Hayden and me to just improvise, which was amusing because it got inappropriate very quickly. That being said, the sight of the two cheekily quipping at one another likely wouldn't have been any more inappropriate than the disturbing visual of Anakin intensely claiming he was in agony and tormented by his eventual lover later down the road. But with the finished scene not exactly overflowing with raunchy dialogue, it's clear Lucas opted to leave most of said inappropriate ad-libs on the cutting room floor. Number 9, Luke and Leia's smooch, Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Highlighting the fact that George Lucas didn't quite have his Skywalker saga as fully mapped out as he'd later suggest, eventually revealed siblings Luke Skywalker and Leia Organa share a number of smooches, with the most passionate coming in the wake of the former's Wampa scare on Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back. And while clearly laced into Episode 5 as a way to get under Han Solo's skin, that still doesn't change the fact that these brief moments of ultimately confirmed incest make for a pretty uncomfortable watch whenever you opt to return to the OG trilogy. Had Lucas opted to stick to Lee Brackett's first story treatment, then the emergence of Nelith Skywalker as Luke's sister could have helped take some of the inappropriateness away from those smooches. But the mind behind the Force had other ideas, and so an awkward moment that Mark Hamill is still making fun of to this day was born. Number 8, Grogu chows down on Frog Lady's eggs, The Mandalorian. For all of the undoubted cuteness the Jedi youngling / Mandalorian foundling brought to the Star Wars party during the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, there was still a moment there that threatened to undo all of the good work Jon Favreau and the gang had put into making the little green legend a precious household name. After Mando agrees to help a frog lady transport her unfertilized eggs to her husband during the events of The Passenger, the child soon decides to help himself to a few of the unborn offspring upon getting a bit peckish. And sure enough, fans of the usually adorable alien very quickly recoiled at the sight of him seemingly casually munching on some soon-to-be children. Lucasfilm creative art manager Phil Szostak would ultimately defend this rather jarring action, claiming the episode makes it clear that the frog lady's eggs are unfertilized, like the chicken eggs many of us enjoy. But obviously chickens aren't sentient beings, and the child eating the eggs is intentionally disturbing for comedic effect. But it's not too hard to see why some found this one a little more unsettling than, you know, hilarious. Number 7, droid torture makes its presence known. Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Whether it makes any real sense or not, there's still no getting around the fact that Star Wars boasts a rather disturbing instance of pretty extreme torture in the opening stages of Return of the Jedi. Coming as C-3PO and R2-D2 get to know the ins and outs of Jabba's palace, the two lovable droids are soon exposed to the sight of a gonk droid being flipped upside down and having its feet scorched by another sadistic robot in the crime lord's torture chamber. If the visual of a helpless little bot being burned alive wasn't bad enough though, the scene also seems to suggest that droids can actually feel pain in this galaxy far, far away, with the Gronk unit letting out squeals of anguish before the scene also highlights another droid being horrifically dismembered. Now sure, the fact these machines are technically little more than bolts and circuits takes a bit of the edge off of the horror, yet there's still no escaping the reality of Episode 6 getting the ball rolling with a moment that would have likely been classed as anything but PG had the bots been replaced with living beings. Number 6, Rey and Ben Solo suddenly get romantic, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. While it thankfully didn't involve any siblings locking lips out of the blue, we don't think, that still doesn't make Ben Solo and Rey's decision to suddenly take part in a passionate smooch towards the end of The Rise of Skywalker any less jarring to behold. After the pair of Force-sensitive souls help to take down Rey's grandpalps, the Emperor's granddaughter suddenly kisses goodbye to the land of the living herself. What a bummer. Yet, in an act that would effectively complete his redemption arc, the former KYLO Ren soon finds a way to revive his longtime rival via the Force. Instead of just having the pair share a knowing look of respect, or Rey simply show her gratitude by giving the redeemed Ben a more justifiable embrace for saving a life, however, J.J. Abrams opted to have the two share an unexpected snug. And clearly sensing the backlash that would be heading their way had Disney and Lucasfilm leaned into this being a fully romantic moment, the eventual Rise of Skywalker novelization would try and explain away the sudden beat of passion as a kiss of gratitude and an acknowledgement of their connection. Yeah, sure it was. Frame it however you want, but that still won't change the fact that this climactic and rather forced smooch felt somewhat out of place as the Skywalker saga reached its end. Number 5, Crispy Fried Owen and Beru, Episode 4, A New Hope. Nothing inspires a hero to leave behind their humble home and finally learn the ways of the Force quite like the visual of their family being fried alive by stormtroopers, eh? Well, that's what George Lucas thought during the first act of A New Hope, at least, with Luke Skywalker soon stumbling upon the charred remains of his Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen in the wake of discovering what he thought was the truth about his father from Obi-Wan Kenobi. Little did he know. Admittedly, seeing the smoking and destroyed Lars family homestead did highlight very early on just how barbaric the Empire could be during their request to get precisely what they wanted. But did folks really need to see the crispy fried skeletons of Luke's guardians lay on the Tatooine sand to get that point across? It no doubt helped burn the horrific moment into the minds of infants the world over upon witnessing this shocking act for the first time, sure. But looking back, the sequence feels like something straight out of a horror flick rather than a brief beat of darkness in the thick of a fantastical space opera. Number 4, Kylo Ren's chest makes a jarring cameo. Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Kylo Ren suddenly popping into Rey's head half naked is still, well, something else, isn't it? And though Rian Johnson would later explain this decision to have Adam Driver oddly bare his chest mid-movie as a way of upping the intimacy of Rey and Kylo's bizarre Force connection, claiming what's even more uncomfortable having a conversation face-to-face with a person you don't want to is if they're half naked during it while you're having to do it. The end result still elicited a feeling of wholly unwanted awkwardness. Between the attempts to fuse a highly dramatic conversation with some rather misfiring comedy, and the unintentionally hilarious sight of Ren boasting nothing but some freakishly high-waisted trousers, this moment had bad news written all over it from the get-go. But at least one of the most surreal and ill-suited visuals the Skywalker saga had to offer gave birth to Lego topless Kylo and led to the moniker of Ben Swallow becoming a thing. Every cloud and all that. Number 3, Anakin chops down some younglings, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. At the risk of stating the obvious, Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader performs some truly unforgivable acts at various points throughout his time, wreaking havoc on the galaxy far, far away. And whilst massacring villages, murdering Jedi Masters, and even force-choking his beloved, all undoubtedly rank pretty highly on his list of despicable actions during the Skywalker saga, there's no questioning which highly inappropriate deed sits atop his list of villainous efforts. Remarkably though, despite unquestionably sticking out as one of the most shocking and unexpectedly appalling additions to the prequel trilogy, Anakin's cutting down of younglings was almost even more barbaric at one point, before ultimately deciding that merely the suggestion of the fallen Jedi slicing up the youngsters was enough to inspire outrage and highlight how uncompromising Vader could be on his day. Lucas actually shot a scene that involved Skywalker very much chopping down the Jedi of tomorrow. But as Emperor Palpatine actor Ian McDiarmid would explain later down the road, this gruesome alternative eventually ended up on the cutting room floor. Despite retaining a PG-13 rating by not explicitly showing said youngling dispatching though, the visual hint at Anakin killing younglings was still enough to leave many feeling a touch uncomfortable coming out of the last slice of prequel drama. Number 2, Princess Leia sports her gold bikini as Jabba's slave, Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. The fact that Carrie Fisher herself went on record to explain just how much she hated donning Princess Leia's now infamous gold bikini during the opening stages of Return of the Jedi is enough of a reminder why this rather inappropriate visual should have probably never made it into existence in the first place. In fact, upon being shown the outfit for the very first time by George Lucas, the actor would even note how she thought her director was kidding her, and the fact he ultimately wasn't made her understandably very nervous. Being able to eventually be the one to kill off Jabba the Hutt did at least slightly redeem the fact she'd been forced into this highly revealing outfit early into Episode 6, with Fisher revealing, "I really relish demolished that because I hated wearing that outfit, and sitting there rigid straight and I couldn't wait to kill him. But even with that being the case, the icon wouldn't hesitate in advising the likes of Daisy Ridley not to settle for simply being a sex symbol. You should fight for your outfit, don't be a slave like I was in the years that followed. All in all, Harrison Ford probably put it best in stating, she's a princess, what the hell is she doing walking around in a bikini? Number 1, Peter Cushing is brought back from the dead, Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Digitally de-aging an actor still very much alive and kicking is one thing, but completely resurrecting a star that has very much passed on left a decent chunk of Star Wars supporters feeling rather conflicted whilst taking in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Despite getting permission from Peter Cushing's estate to use the late thespian's likeness when bringing the iconic presence of Grand Moff Tarkin back into the mix, by infusing CGI with Guy Henry's performance on set, the sight of an actor fans of the franchise knew to be dead conversing with living figures during the flick inevitably still resulted in many being immediately pulled out of the story, even if only for a few seconds. The effect itself is admittedly rather impressively executed in the finished article, it must be said. Yet questions over whether bringing a deceased performer back to life was unethical still remained heading out of the compelling 2016 feature. And while Tarkin's unusual presence doesn't completely derail Rogue One as a whole, this heavily CGI performance was still one that some deemed to be inappropriate in the aftermath, with a lot of folks wondering why the less controversial call of simply, recasting the legendary figure for his Rogue One appearances wasn't opted for instead. And that's our list. Know of any other highly inappropriate moments in Star Wars? Let us know all about them in the comments section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're at it. Also, if you like this kind of thing, then head on over to whatculture.com and find some more fantastic articles just like the one this video you're watching right this second is based on. I've been Gareth from What Culture Star Wars. May the Force be with you as always. Thanks for watching this video today, and hopefully I'll see you very, very soon. Bye bye.